Hi! This week I met with Adam from San Francisco, the co-founder of Kahuna and VoiceLabs, and we were talking about tips for entrepreneurs, how to raise money, when is the right timing to raise money, is it even necessary to raise money, and as well about his learnings. Adam was as well a VC before he co-founded Kahuna, and he got an investment of over $60 million from venture capital like Sequoia. And in his recent company VoiceLabs, where he's focusing on Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant, he got a seed investment from the Chernin Group. So if you like this video, give this video a thumb up and subscribe to the channel. And now, enjoy the talk. Hi, today I'm here with Adam, who is a co-founder of Kahuna and the co-founder of VoiceLabs. And we will talk a little bit about your experience, some other tips for entrepreneurs, learnings, and as well, how to raise money, as you raised a couple millions.
Yeah.
And maybe you can give us some tips, and some learnings about your way.
Sure, looking forward to it, and thanks for having me. So, my name's Adam Marchick. I'm from San Francisco, California, and I was a venture capitalist for 7 years, and then I moved over to start companies. And with Kahuna, we created the mobile marketing automation market. And as CEO of Kahuna, we raised $60 million led by Sequoia. And then I started a new company called VoiceLabs.co, which is dealing with the Alexa and Google Assistant software and the voice ecosystem, which is a pretty exciting new market. And we're a small company with initial funding there. So happy to talk about creating companies and raising funds. I'm excited to be here.
So what, in your opinion, is the most important when you starting out your company and you are raising funds? I mean, you're raising the venture capital. What should you look for? How do you select the right VC, or how did you first select maybe the right angel?
Mm-hmm.
So what's your tips on this?
So I think the first thing is, especially with an angel investor, it's alignment and trust. So I'll talk about our current seed investors, the Chernin Group. Now, Peter Chernin was, and is a huge deal in Los Angeles in the media industry. And the Chernin Group is the fund led by him. And they do a number of exciting media investments. And Mike Kearns is our investor from there. And Mike and my co-founder, Alex, worked together for a number of years at Yahoo. So there's trust. And then they really care about new ecosystems that media will play a big part in. And voice and Alexa and Google Assistant and Cortana are definitely those ecosystems. And so we were very aligned in, let's go create a company to serve this emerging market. So because what happens is you raise a seed round and you have a plan. That plan is going to change 20 times. So with a seed investor, you want someone where you're fundamentally aligned to go figure it out together. And they've been amazing at that.
And then when is the right timing to raise more, or to stay smaller, or what are your...
Yeah, it's a great question. And one of the things that I'm a venture capitalist for 7 years. Raising venture capital is not utopian. The goal of venture capital, and let's say raising more than $3 million, is to artificially accelerate the company. You make decisions that you couldn't make without venture capital. For example, grow unprofitably for a year. You can't do that if you don't raise venture capital. And the goal is to create a large, lasting company. And sometimes the quickest way is to do it unprofitably. Therefore, venture capital helps in that goal. But for a number of people, if you're trying to create a profitable bootstrapped company, last thing you should do is raise venture capital, because they're going to have different expectations than you will.
And how are these expectations discussed with the initial seed angels? I mean, and with the VCs, and are those expectations changing over the time? And how are they set?
So the first thing you're allowed to do is ask, hey, what's your perfect investment? And it's a great discussion. The other thing to do, which I recommend, is if you're talking to an investor, go find out his or her past investments. And usually the ones that they're the most proud of are the type of investments they want to do again. For example, Sequoia led, I think it was a $10 million A round in Google. That worked out pretty well. So they'd like to do more of those. So $10 million lead of A round is kind of Sequoia's perfect investment. Let's see. Mike Maples was a very early investor in a number of companies and did a $500,000 investment in Okta, which went public this week. That's his favorite type of investment. So part of it is to do your research and see what their favorite investments were. And it's usually the ones where they made the most money or felt like they helped the most.
And now from the other side, as you as well work in venture capitalizing for Bain, what are the top things you looked at when investing in a company?
Yeah, great question. And I was really fortunate that I worked both at Menlo Ventures, which is predominantly an early stage firm, and Bain Capital, which does a bunch of early stage but also does late stage. And so it really depends on the firm. And it really depends on what their goals are. From the derivative, what I always loved and why I enjoyed venture capital is when an entrepreneur would come in and explain a world to me that I didn't necessarily know before, and told me things that the moment they said them, I'm like, that's right. For example, with the case of Okta, they were called Sasher, Freddie, and when he presented in the A round, he said, okay, you used to install software and log in, on a thick client. And now there's Salesforce and Google Apps, and all your logins are through the web. And there needs to be a better way to manage all those logins. And you're like, wow, yeah, the world is changing to SaaS from desktop software, and that really is a problem. And 7 years later, they went public.
And how could you predict? I mean, how is the closest to predict, let's say like this?
Gosh, I wish I knew that answer. Mike Moritz and Jim Getz, I'm not the right person to ask that question.
Okay.
That's, I think, what they would say if they were sitting here, and I wish they were, is people. That the closest way to predict is people that you want to be in business with.
Okay, and now coming to a more question, a little bit more out of the founder seat. So if you're starting out your company, how do you grow it, and how do you start growing it?
Well, define growth. For example, revenue, people, or is there another metric? What do you think?
Let's go first on revenue.
Okay. So the first thing, and it's a discussion, is who is the perfect customer? I think either Jeff Siebert of Crashlytics or Zach Werner asked this great question, where they would ask an entrepreneur, okay, who's your perfect customer? And okay, who are 10 that are not perfect customers? And why not? Because what they were testing is, does that entrepreneur know the fundamentals of their right customer, and also has the focus to not pick people that long-term are going to be hard. And so it starts by having 3 to 5 customers that are the right customers that say, this product's important to me and it's worth paying for. And then you go from 5 customers to 20 customers to 50 customers to 500 customers, and it's kind of that step function.
And talking about people, is it like, would you agree then always hire smarter people, and even you don't know where to put them in the company, or what are your take on hiring?
Sure.
Great people?
Yeah, I mean, hiring smarter people is easy for me because there's a lot of smart people, and I'm lucky that I'm a lot of my friends are much smarter than I am. And you know, it's really easy to say hire smart people and put them in, but if you don't have an idea of how that person will increase company value in the next 3 months, I'd question whether bringing that person on. Because if you can't, and they might never have done that project before, but if you can't envision a world where they come in and solve a problem that you have in the next 3 months, I think it's hard. I mean, you're spending money, so spend it wisely. And it's not fun for someone to come in and feel like they're not being utilized. They want to be helpful. They want to hit the ground running and have a really important project. So make sure there's that match between your needs and the potential of that person. Not what they've done before, but the potential of that person. And
when do you know to hire whom, and when do you know to really scale it? Let's give an example. For example, how you done it in Kahuna. Can you maybe give some examples there?
I mean, it's a lot of art versus science, but especially around scaling a company. Part of it is metrics and numbers help inform the discussion. And for an enterprise software company, there's a really good metric around the productivity of a sales rep. So one salesperson, how much gross profit do they produce? And when that number gets really high, that means hire more sales reps. And so you look at the productivity and repeatability of your sales team. Because if there's only one person doing that, you haven't found it yet. But when 5 out of 6 sales reps are knocking the cover off the ball, time to grow.
And talking about the VCs, so, and their advices. So what do you recommend when is how do you have the relationship in taking the advice, pursuing your own your own way, finding a middle? Do you have some advice on this?
Well, I think I would give a lot of credit to Kahuna's A-round investor, Omar Humaway from Sequoia, where he started AdMob, arguably one of the top 3 mobile companies, software companies of the last generation, bought by Google. And if it'd be really easy if it were him to say, I know the answer. But how he operated is when there was an important decision, he would share his perspective, and then he'd really look to me to be the CEO and make the decision. And I think that's, if you talk to a lot of the best investors, they're not bashful with their opinion, but they also, I think Mark Andreessen gave a talk last week about taking the ego out of a decision. There's no ego in the decision. So all they care about is the CEO making the right decision, and they believe in the CEO. Therefore, if the CEO makes a decision different from their inclination, that's great.
And can you tell us a little bit about your current company?
Sure, I'd love to. So the best thing is I started this company with one of the smartest and highest integrity people I know, who's also one of my best friends, Alex Linares. And Alex was working and collaborating with the Chernin Group about 1.5 years ago. And I had just taken the chairman role at Kahuna and was thinking about my next thing. But I wouldn't say thinking about it that aggressively. I was also skiing and enjoying. And Alex was really deep into thinking what platforms and ecosystems would change the world in the next 10 years. And he was the one who said, hey Adam, have you checked out this Echo thing? And I got one. And it kind of felt like the first time I tried an iPad. Where an iPad, there's no keyboard. First time you tried it, you're like, what do I do with this thing? I've been using a computer for 15 years. This is totally different. And in the iPad's case, it didn't do a lot of things. But it was really cool for email and web browsing. In the case for the Echo, I mean, that's the only thing I use for music now. And whenever I have to use a phone or computer to pick a radio station, I'm annoyed. So it's these voice-first devices, in a few ways, are really delightful. And so Alex and I got conviction and went to the Chernin Group, and they partnered with us. And what we did, and it's fun, is now this is my third emerging ecosystem I've been part of. First was social at Facebook. Second was mobile with Kahuna. Third is voice with VoiceLabs. Is we went and just talked to people building voice apps. The Disneys and Sonys and Warner Brothers and Ubers and Lyfts. And we just asked them, hey, why did you build a voice app? And what's really important to you right now? And we had feelings from our last company that the first thing app developers need is to understand how their app is being used, and that's product analytics. So we built a product analytics solution called Voice Insights, and we launched that 7 months ago, and I'm really proud to say that it's the most used analytics product for Amazon Alexa and the most used product for Google Assistant for Home. And there's a few other large players coming out with platforms that we're going to support as well.
And how is it working? Is it what technology is behind, or how?
Yeah, so it's a lot of it is around big data and digesting data in real time and making intelligent decisions around when to present it in real time versus when to aggregate it. But then from a product and product marketing and product fit perspective, it's about how do you use data and analytics to solve the most important hurdles currently. And so, for example, we created a paper, 12-page research paper called the Voice Report, where we analyzed a bunch of the voice apps. And one of the issues was retention. It was actually in the second week of a voice app, only 3% of people were still there. So you had 100 people, you acquired only 97 were gone by the second week. And we got to improve that. And so we built products like Pathfinder and different products to uncover, Speech Finder and Voice Pathing, to uncover ways to improve retention, and then actions to improve retention, and it's working, which is exciting.
And how do you got this 100 users? How do you use, what kind of channels you use to?
Yeah, our developers, so there's the Alexa skill store and an app. And then there's, it's discovery of voice apps, which is something our friends at Amazon and Google are doing a lot of interesting work around, and it's fun to watch. And so they're advertising the Super Bowl. And, now when you turn on the TV in the US, you see advertisements for Google Home and Alexa Echo, Amazon Echo. So it's kind of fun to watch this market grow. There's going to be 33 million of these devices in US homes by the end of this year.
And how are you as well planning to, like, the market entry in Europe, for example?
Yeah, last night, what's so fun about emerging markets is you never know who's going to lead. And so I was at a talk, a meetup for voice developers here in Berlin. There's 150 people. And it's one of the most vibrant voice developer groups in the world. So, yes, we have customers all over. Actually, I was talking to a customer just now in Qatar. It's fun.
And what are your, let's say, your most important learning as an entrepreneur so far, which you can share with the people out there who are as well building out their company, what should they look for? Like some, maybe the most valuable tips you have.
Sure. So I think I'll do one that's execution oriented and one that's personal oriented. So the execution oriented one, and this was something, an exercise I go through, is think about that perfect customer and then really think about all the reasons they wouldn't buy your product. Because it's really easy to say, oh, of course they need this. And a lot of times what you're looking for is this their number one problem? Because if it isn't, their to-do list is overflowing. So if it's not their number one problem, it's going to be hard, or their number two problem. And so part of it is to think about all the reasons they wouldn't spend time on your product. I mean, maybe they need, like for analytics, if someone hasn't built an app yet, they don't need analytics. So part of it was saying, okay, have you built the app yet? And hey, I have some partners that can help build the app. Let's talk in a few months. It's not the right time for us to get involved. Let's keep in touch. I'm excited. Here's a partner that can help you. And then personal, is I can't imagine starting a company without a co-founder. And once again, I'm really lucky to have Alex. And how I describe it is your goal as an entrepreneur is to dampen the sine waves. That, if you don't do that, one week you're on the top of the world, the next week everything's falling apart. And the actual truth is it's somewhere in the middle. And the more you stay grounded and in the middle, the more longevity you have. And you watch the CEOs who take companies from 0 to $10 billion, like the Reed Hastings, and they're pretty good at that. They're pretty good at just keeping steady. And I think it's because they've cracked that code through working hard on it, on dampening the sine waves.
Okay. Yeah, thanks a lot, Adam.
Great. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.